Hey, tolerators. This is to all the men I've tolerated before with your hot mess express, Natalie Katona,
And Dina Al-Khatib.
with no qualifier because she has it together today.
I don't. Oh my gosh, I really don't though.
If you're new to our podcast, Dina and I spend every Sunday morning exploring some of the impactful relationships we've had with the men in our lives. We then do a nice job explaining to you some stories and some lessons they chose to leave us with. And then we, because we're big, mature people, decide that we manifest some positivity we hope for their future. Today is a Dina topic. We'll be talking about the men who let their mothers have a lot of control over their lives.
That's right. And I think I did a little like research, like official research into like, and by official I mean I Googled it, you know, into what a mama's boy really is. Um,
Yeah.
and let me tell you, the online definitions were not as nice. Like I read them and I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
like that's mean. And I'm not trying to be that mean about it.
Right.
But so I just kind of, I'm going to say what I think my definition of it is. And I think a mama's boy is someone whose mother has a little more control over their life than they should. So,
Yeah.
and I think that'll become clear as I'm talking about my mama's boy, but does that relate to your experiences too, Natalie?
So I didn't really have like, and it could just be because I can't be bothered to give a shit with anyone about anyone's parental dynamics but my own. But I have had very few relationships where the mama's boy trope was like present in our everyday. It was more just like a red flag that I would clock. Like,
Mm,
oh, I see that.
okay.
I see that and I've noticed it, and I'm going to wait to see how this plays out on whether or not we'll be discussing it later. But yeah, I do agree with your definition where it's honestly like you watch a man in your life make a choice based off of their mother's needs or wants, desires, whining, and you're like, oh, you're gonna let that derail your whole day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Derail your whole day.
Yeah. And I think it's like it takes two parties, right? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
completely the mother's fault. So
No.
the mom is, of course, interfering a bit too much into their adult son's
Right.
life. But the son is also not putting their foot down or standing
Right.
up for themselves and things like that. So it takes two parties to create that. It's not just the mom's being
Yeah.
overbearing and that's it. Like, so
Yes. Do you feel like, because as we know, you and I started a podcast about men because we have daddy issues?
we sure do. Daddy
We sure do.
issues.
Daddy issues. It's why I listen to all the pop stars I listen to.
That's right.
And so do you feel like mommy issues get as much of a highlight as daddy issues?
I think they no. Well, I think in society, no, but
No.
obviously, mommy issues are just as a problem as daddy issues. But maybe it's because men don't get their problems, like that as focused on. Men
Hmm.
are just like, I have to deal with all my problems, or I don't have any problems, and I'm macho and all this stuff that mommy issues don't get talked about as much. So
All right. Yeah. It was just something that I was thinking about today where it's like I very rarely hear my other heterosexual girlfriends, or really even my homosexual, like identifying as male friends who date men, say like, well, I couldn't date him because he had mommy issues.
mm,
But like I'm always hearing bro life being all like, well, she's got a lot, like, ugh. Did you hear her daddy issues come out right then and there? Like, I just feel like we're always so quick to, like, throw women under the bus because their fathers did, like, such hardcore damage to them. And then, like, with mommy issues, it's always like, well, he loves his mom. His mom's
Yeah.
his best friend, and that's normal. That's a
What's up
normal
with that?
thing to have. Yeah, I don't
So
know.
weird, man. Yeah, I think
It's
there's
so
a little
weird.
bit of weirdness with the relationship between a. I mean, I think there's weirdness between a relationship between a father and a daughter, but like,
Hmm.
it's a little extra weird with the mom and the son. Like, it's almost like romanticized sometimes, and I'm like, that's freaking weird.
It's like, are you guys going to make out?
Yeah, like I
Will
feel
you
like with
make?
the dad-daughter situation, it's like protective, like it's like an
Yeah.
overly protective, which has its own issues, you know what I'm saying? But with
Hmm.
the mom and son, it's like you're taking my baby away, and that's like
Right.
it gets a little weird for me. Like that sounds strange. So,
Like, we have in our family a wedding tape of my grandmother looking dead eye into a camera and saying, "You'll never love him as much as I loved him," like about one of my uncles. And I feel like that just like,
ew.
it's like, you need to calm down.
Dude, grandma, grandma, they're having sex. Like what? That's weird. What does that mean?
And like, this is the grandma who fully haunts me. So I accept that she will come and visit tonight and be like, stop talking shit. I'll be like, you're right. She's also the grandma who hurt me the least, so I shouldn't be throwing shade. But just because she chose to hurt me the least didn't mean she didn't hurt other people.
Maybe like, protective spell or something tonight. I don't
Right.
know.
Just like own it. Just be like, I'm sorry, grandma.
Sorry, grandma.
It was good content. I did it for the gram.
Did it for the gram.
So whenever I would be like dating or in like a really in-depth friendship with a guy and I would clock his biggest mama issue, it always came down to money. I'm in this like pattern where I'm constantly like meeting men. I mean, not constantly. It's really only two very like meaningful relationships that I had with two guys where they were like financially always in a position of supporting their mom due to
Oh,
bad decisions she was making.
interesting. I've never run into that. So
Really?
yeah, I've never had a guy who's like it's always the parents are providing support to the son.
Huh.
So that's interesting. So how did that play out then?
Sure. So when I was in high school, like I'll be honest with our listeners, I have lived a very privileged lifestyle when it comes to money. And I have always told the men in my life who fall into this category of men who financially support their families that, like, my parents, they could have done better on the mental and the emotional front, but at least I know right now today they don't touch my money. Because I have such this, like a toxic, like safety definition of money. Like whenever anything weird happens with my money, I'm like, I'm dead. Or I have to sell my house. Or like Penelope and I can't eat. Or God forbid I'm going to have to move back in with my father. Like, I never want to find myself in a position where I can't support myself anymore. And so to watch these men have their mothers, like, literally just, like, piss their money away
Wow.
or any of this. And then they're in a position of being in their adult life where they're like, here's the electric bill, Mom. Or, like, here's $70 for groceries. And I've had to watch guys scramble for that money because the first guy I ran into this particular issue with, I was in high school. So he was also in high school working the same like part-time job I was working or just out of high school trying to start his professional or college life. So you would just like watch them scramble and try to be like, okay, what do I have? And like, honestly, one of these guys was in a military position and he thought he was going to be deployed, and he asked his girlfriend, who I was like friends with, and that's how I met him, to like, hey, if I have to go overseas, will you marry me so I know that the like deployment money will be there at the end of the day, like you and I can start our own like marriage checking account. And of course, like, we're like 18, so she's like, marriage means something to me, and when I get married, it's forever, and I want you to say that you love me forever. And my Capricorn logical brain went, no, he literally just needs a safety net. So like, I interrupted her emotional meltdown, and I went, I'll do it.
Right.
And he looked at me and he goes, really? I was like, fuck yeah, because no one should have to fuck with your money.
That's right.
So if you need a safety wife, and I had an uncle come back from overseas, and all of his money was gone, and his family had like moved on without him.
That's so
So like,
scary.
so I had like a first-hand account of like what that does to a person.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'll be damned.
If it happens to you, yeah.
And I kind of like yelled at my girlfriend. I'm like, you don't understand what he's asking of you.
Right.
He's not asking you to bear his children and like build a life together. He's literally just trying to save his own ass.
Right.
So when he comes home, he doesn't have to restart everything.
After literally being in the military, like protecting us, like that's scary. Dude.
So like and of course, like, we haven't had my divorce episode, so it didn't happen.
Okay.
He never had to go, like, overseas or whatever. And so it never happened. I never had to be, like, a wartime bride. But the fact that, like, I felt so compelled to be like, no, like, because, again, money to me is all wrapped up in security. So for me, I was like, yeah, I can give you that peace of mind to just be like, no, you shouldn't come home broke.
Right.
Then, like, my first boyfriend, his mom had passed away when he was a kid. And, like, he treated his stepmom like literally the mean lady in Cinderella.
Oh.
Like, everything she said was stupid. Everything that she did for herself made her selfish. If she was out with her girlfriends, she wasn't taking care of his dad. We were grown-up people. I was in college and he was out of college. So his dad was like hella not in a, like, it wasn't like he needed to be supported or taken care of, but like anytime this woman would like go out with girlfriends or like have a couple of drinks or anything, like she was the most selfish person in the world. My boyfriend at the time believed that she should be at home after work making sure that his dad was fed and entertained and probably bathed and all of it.
Wow.
I know. And then like I'm looking at him and I'm like, so should we get married, you're expecting me to plan my entire day around your schedule. So therefore, because you can't microwave a hot dog if I'm out or order a pizza.
That's... Ugh.
Yeah. And honestly, like, looking back on that relationship, that is very much how he tried to run our relationship, because I was still at school, and he was, like, working with my mom back at home. So if he would, like, he called me at the same time every night, and if I was out doing college things, he'd be mad. He'd be enraged. Like, you don't understand how hard my life is. I work all day, and then I make myself dinner, and you just get to go to a cafeteria, and then you can't even be available every night at 9 to talk to me. Like, it was like that toxic shit.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, well, I'm sorry that you're living like a normal adult lifestyle. Like, everyone has to like go and fend something for dinner for themselves. Like, everyone has something to do from 9 to 5. Like, I'm in class, you're at work, do something with your life. I don't know, be happier. And then, as we know, with my shame relationship, that guy called his mom every day, but they had nothing to talk about because he didn't remember anything about his childhood. So it wasn't like that they were shooting the shit or had some like deep emotional connection. I think his mom like wasn't getting like any emotional interaction from her marriage at home, so he like filled that void for her.
See, that's weird to me. Like, that's
That,
not a child's role.
but people will make it your role if it like I've seen that so many times. Like even when my own parents will be going through it and now all of a sudden like they really want to lean on me and just be like, this is what's happening and this is how I'm feeling and this is what I need you to do to make my life better, or could you please act this way? And yeah.
Which, like, I think, like, when you're an adult, you know, now, that's a little different, but from what I've experienced, it's not just like, okay, you're 18 now and we can talk about
Right.
emotions and we can lean on each other. I find that the kid is, if they have a relationship with their parents like that, they've probably been made to feel that way or been supporting their parents emotionally since they were like kids. And
Yes.
that's a lot to put on your kid. And
Hmm.
then it goes into adulthood where they're trying to take care of their parents all the time, because that's what they did when
Yeah.
they were younger. And now it's so.
And what I found, especially with that last relationship, and like the men that I find like who are still so emotionally attached to like whatever it is that their mother wants out of their life, it's like they don't know themselves. So like this last relationship, he was like, I really need to find a church. I really need to find my community through church. Like I really miss going to church. And then I would go, oh, okay, cool. What are you looking for in a church and what does that provide for you? Well, it's just we always and they don't know.
It's like they're just doing it because of their family, like, says, hey, maybe you should find a church. And they're like, oh, I need a
Yeah,
church. But they don't actually, they may want a church, but they don't know what they want for themselves, from that
right.
church. So,
To the point where like this last guy, like he would call his mom to like okay the dinner that he was making me on our weekly dates.
what? That's weird.
Yeah.
See, that's weird.
But also wouldn't tell I'm sure he would never tell his mom any of the real details about what it was like to date me because
She wouldn't
as we
approve.
know,
Yeah.
right. And as we know, he ended our relationship because I am not the type of woman you bring home to mom.
You're not a nice church girl, Natalie.
I'm not. I'm just
You're a little too loud. A little
a
too
little too
loud.
loud. I like sex a little too much.
Clearly, you're just a horror.
Yeah. And honestly, like, this is what I find with these guys that have, like, mama issues like that, where it's like, my first boyfriend, he wanted me to be the person that his stepmom wasn't. So, like, be June Cleaver and make, like, my dad's house clean and, cook me dinner whenever I want dinner and be available for me whenever I decide that I need you available for me, but also leave me the fuck alone if I want to go out with the boys.
Bruh.
And then my shame relationship, it's like, well, what will my mom think of her? And, am I going to be disappointed? And my mom can't handle being disappointed. And then with the other guys, it's just like, my mom relies on me and it's on me to make sure that they're safe and healthy and they're not responsible for any of their choices. And it's
What in
just
the world?
so odd to watch.
It's hard for me to relate because I don't have that kind of relationship with my mom, and so I can't,
Hmm.
or with any of my family. Like, I'm not very close with most of my family, so it's like, of course I care about, my mom being okay, but like she's never put that much pressure and reliance
Yeah.
on me, like, holding her up or anything. So,
I get a lot of the be my emotional stability
Yeah,
from one
that's
of my parents, but I like shut it down. I just like block it down. And like literally on my last family Zoom, it wasn't even me. It was my sister that parent was going after. And it was like, well, I can't believe that you wouldn't prioritize time with us and talking to us over like literally something that's part of my sister's job. And I was like, you can't fucking expect us to just be at your beck and call every Thursday. Like, life is moving on. We have shit to do. I have shit to do in the evenings.
right.
And my shit is important. And if you wanted to know anything about why that shit was important, you would ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're
So,
not wrong.
but I am very good about like just going dead inside to it. Now I am calling it up. As we know, I had a meltdown on Christmas Eve.
You're right.
As we know, I had a screaming meltdown in the parking lot. Not the parking lot, in the driveway during Christmas Eve, where I screamed about how I was ignored, unseen, and unheard, and too much of the emotional weight of the family was always put on my shoulder while I was visiting. And I'm just screaming and crying in my pajamas.
You know, it'd be like that sometimes.
I feel like that sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to throw down. But yeah, and so I don't know what to boil it all down to, because like I also think that the way that I've experienced mommy issues isn't like the way media like portrays mommy issues, where it's just like, you know, your mom's still bathing you and you're 22 years old or
Oh
doing
God,
your
weird.
laundry or like still making you her little baby infant boy. But
Okay,
what does
but
it
that
look
kind
like?
of sort of relates to mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that yours though?
Yeah, that's sort of like mine. It feels more like the stereotypical. Um, so I'm calling this guy Adam, and Adam was a very typical nice guy, but he was also a mama's boy. And like I said earlier, I think it takes two parties. It's like not just the mom being overbearing, but the kid also, the son also, you know, basically not having a backbone and standing up to their mother.
Mm-hmm.
So Adam came from a very like nice conservative family, and I feel like when I came into the picture, they didn't expect me. They didn't expect an independent Palestinian, chaotic, loud, you know, kind of like everything comes out of my mouth, full
You're
speed
right.
kind of person. And honestly, they told Adam and me that they thought we wouldn't be together for more than 6 months, even though this particular relationship ended up lasting around a little more than 4 years. But I noticed that he let his mother and his parents in general, it wasn't all on his mother, but um, dictate his life. And so when I kind of came into the picture, it always felt like it was me taking this baby boy, because he was the youngest sibling, from
Ugh.
his mother's clutches. You know what I mean? Even though, mind
From
you,
his
this is a
mama's
full grown
tits.
man, like full grown. So they would kind of control his life a little bit. They would tell him like what he should go to college for. They had opinions on every decision that he like wanted to make in his life, and he for the most part went with whatever they thought he should do. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is because he was living with his family, right? He had never been on his own, and so he was quote living under their roof, and so there's still this expectation from them that, well, if you're living under my roof, you gotta do everything I tell you, and which in reality, you know, that's not realistic. If you have an adult
No.
living, there is a level of respect, right? If you're living under somebody's roof, but you're also still an adult. Like, you still have your own opinions and want, or you should, right? Have your own wants and needs and all this thing. So, but he just kind of never stood up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the mother in particular, This was also, ironically, a military family. And so the father was often out, overseas doing the military thing, not at home. And so the mother got into this habit of relying on her baby son to be this surrogate husband, which is weird, right? To say.
Yes.
That's weird.
It's so weird.
It's
How
so
does this
weird.
happen?
So, right. And so when you imagine this kid, because this was a kid when he was a kid, he is now
Yeah.
being forced to kind of fill that role of a father emotionally. So when his mom would like cry or things like that, he's filling this role. And so that
I'm
kind of
gagging.
that bleeds into adulthood, right? Where now anytime his mother is feeling sad or like having an issue in her personal life, she's running to her son instead of
Gross.
relying on herself, or better yet, relying on her partner, her husband,
Right. Fuck,
for
you
that
have a
emotional
husband.
support. Right. It's strange. It's strange.
It's so weird.
So
It's icky.
you're right. And so whenever he and I got together, he moved in with me. I have a really specific like story. So when we moved in, this was like his first time living with someone, and like I had lived with people and I'd had roommates and whatever. But when he moved here and we moved in together, we didn't have like furniture and things like that. So his parents graciously offered to take us to get some furniture and to get some a few appliances that we didn't have, and like it was really nice. They wanted to give him, start him outright, if that makes sense. And I was super grateful, and it was awesome. So they took us to go find a couch, like a living room set, basically. And so me and Adam had talked about what we wanted and the kind of look we wanted in our apartment and all this stuff, and we had an idea of that. And so I would say that look was more like not comfort look, but more like just wanted it to look nice. You know what I mean? Which,
Yeah.
whatever. That's just what we decided at the time, and that's fine. But his parents, his mother in particular, was like, let's get you a sectional because it's comfy, and it's like, and I just like didn't like that. It personally reminded me of like a bachelor almost or whatever, versus like, hey, this
Or
is
like,
our apartment. You know what I mean?
because I'm thinking about getting a sectional, but also part of me is like, but then does my living room look like a basement?
Right,
Like it just
exactly. So,
yeah.
and I didn't want that vibe at the time. Nothing against it, because now I have a huge ass sectional that is the most
It's so
comfortable
comfortable.
couch ever. It's amazing. I love it. But at that time, that's what me and Adam had decided on, and that's what we were looking for. And the whole time, when we made it clear that his mom's choice, like what she was pointing out, like, ooh, get this, every time we were like, oh, well, that's not really what, we were looking for, she would like be passive aggressive and angry about it. And like he never stood up to her. He never was like, hey mom, I appreciate your opinions on this, but like we are looking for something along these lines. Like he just never stood up to them. And I think he had been trained to say, my opinions and wants don't matter. It's my mom's wants and needs that matter.
So, and I think because this sounds like a lot of what happens when someone decides to help me out in my family financially. And then it's not just like, well, I'll cut you the check. It's like, no, I should have a say over the color and where you put it and how it goes.
Right.
And when money's involved, it always feels so icky because it's like, well, you're paying for it, but it's kind of presented as a gift, but now you want to pick it out, and it is. It's so
awkward
icky.
for sure.
Yeah.
And it felt like they kind of use that as a tool sometimes to make him feel bad, and therefore he never said what he wanted, ever. So I think that's the bigger issue in this, is that he couldn't stand up to his mom about his opinions, his wants, his needs, and how it might differ from what they wanted for him, which resulted in him not, like, basically having no sense of self. Like his whole life was making sure he did everything his mom wanted and his parents wanted. Um, and that kind of affected our relationship because when I came into the picture, I'm assuming this person has their own wants and needs and opinions. And then so I would ask him, like, oh, well, what do you think? What are you feeling? What do you want? What do you need? And nothing. Literally
Nothing.
nothing would come out because for so long he lived for his mother's needs and whatever she wanted, that now when he's being faced with, well, what do you want, he has no answer because his whole life was taking care of someone else and being that for his mom. So
Could you imagine us being as old and as haggard as we are today, and like I can't tell you what type of ice cream I like?
and that sounds dramatic, but that's really, he couldn't decide.
Right.
It was always, so whenever I would ask, what do you want for dinner tonight? Because, I'm the one that always seemed to be making the decisions about everything. He would be like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want? It would always like be turned around for him to try and like appease me, and I'm like, I don't need you to appease me. Like, I'm okay. Like,
No.
I'm fine. I'm an adult, and it's okay for me to make some of the decisions sometimes, but I also want to take into account what my partner wants and feels and needs. But he had spent so much time being his mom's surrogate husband, basically, that he only knew how to live for someone else, not for himself. So it was quite sad,
Yeah.
actually.
Because I've had a parent who tries to pull bullshit like that, where it's like, well, I'm paying for this, so I get to pick it. Or we know that when I moved into this goddamn condo, there was a lot of furniture that came from someone's house that I didn't want. And I just came home from work one day and it was all set up. And I was like, I don't remember saying yes to any of this.
Right.
Well, well, and then it's all about why they can't keep it in their house anymore and why you should feel grateful that they even brought it for you and all of it. And I don't know if it's my defiance issues or if I'm just so goddamn headstrong because of that grandmother side of the family we were talking about earlier in the show, but I can't do it. And I am one of those people who's really bad and I need 100 opinions before I spend money on anything. But the first time that I didn't do that is when I painted the bedroom and the bathroom. I literally went to Home Depot and I just like impulse grabbed a set of like the first paint swatches that called to me, put them all together and went, yeah, those all look good. And I just fucking bought them.
Which
And
is
then
so great, honestly. It's
yeah.
such a good feeling.
And then afterwards, people are like, oh yeah, we really, really like those color combos. Like, you should go and get them. And I was like, I already got them because I'm a badass bitch.
Fuck you, I did it.
Fuck you, I did it. This is my house. My
Right.
kitchen is magenta. My kitchen is magenta.
I actually love that color. On another note, I love that color. So
It took me so long, and it honestly took me moving away from that parent to actually sit down with myself and be like, what do I believe? What do I like?
right.
What's going on inside of my own head? And you would hope that with your partner, because it's not like they were down the street.
No,
They
they were
were
not. They were far away.
hours in yeah. And it still leaked into your everyday.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it's almost like a brainwashing thing, right? You spend so long doing something, and then, that's just the way your life becomes. And it's, I will say, this guy, Adam, we broke up, and I think that by the end of our relationship, he had developed a little bit of pushback, of knowing what he wants and his own opinions, and not letting his mother dictate that all the time. And I think that helped.
He would shit talk a little bit.
Yeah, like he felt a little
Yeah.
more in his element, which is like, That's good. Like that's good.
Yeah.
That's what part of I think growing up and getting away from your parents, clutch hold on you. That's natural, but it just took a lot longer for him. So,
And you and I talked about this when we decided to go on this adventure together, that like our families are not going to be on board with the content we are presenting.
oh
Like,
yes, no, that definitely not.
no,
But it's not
no. I talk
stopping
about,
us. It can't.
right, but it's not stopping us because you can't do that. And like yesterday, my sister and I were doing our monthly craft day over Zoom, and we were talking about like why parents feel the need to have Instagram, because one
Mm-hmm.
of her friends' mothers was now commenting on every Instagram story that
Oh
she
my
posted.
god. Yeah.
And my sister made the point, she was like, well, that's why if my dad gets Instagram, he will not have access to my account. And I said, well, doubly for me, because I'm going to be posting all of our podcast content through my Instagram, and he will not enjoy it at all.
Right.
And I just feel like at some point these men have never gotten to the headspace or the clarity where they realize, oh, this is what living my life for other people has cost me.
Yes. That's right. Because I mean that they're living their lives for their mothers, not for
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and that's not the way
And
it's supposed to be.
I can put it into number terms. It cost me 6 years because I was a teacher, because at 18, all I knew was go to college, get a job, get married, and have a baby. And I thought, well, teaching is a pretty easy career to bow out of and have a baby during because of summer breaks and all of that.
Right.
It cost me 6 years of doing a job that honestly, I want him back.
Right.
At New Year's Eve, another man that we've talked about, he told me, he goes, well, what you don't understand, Natalie, is I still have a lot of love and respect for my parents. And I think that's a dangerous narrative too. I don't produce a podcast with sex positive content to make my father angry and to show him that I don't give a shit about him.
Right.
I produce a sex positive relationship podcast because I care about myself and my story.
Right. I mean, it has nothing to do with them. They're, of course, we're not saying you shouldn't respect your parents. You shouldn't be grateful for what they have given us. Of course, those are things that are that I think every child has to think about when it comes to their parents. But if something comes out of your mouth that they don't agree with, and they start like
Mm-hmm.
trying to control your voice and your life, that's a problem. Like, they don't own your life just because they brought you into this world. They,
Right.
of course, I'm grateful for my mother for raising me on her own and all this stuff. Like, I'm so grateful for that, but now I'm an adult and I have to make my choices and my decisions and have my own thoughts and feelings. And that doesn't reflect anything on my parents at all. It shouldn't.
Do you think it, like, this attitude of, like, mommy's little boy has to be her little helper all the time? Like, do you think it plays into, like, the man of the house stereotype, or, like, back in the day, like, only men could own property, so whenever you got to have a son, you hit the lottery ticket because it meant your name would live on and your property would live on and he could be king one day?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. At least with Adam and his family, like there were the thing of passing down your name, the name, all these things that are they're very ancient type thinkings, right? Like that you need to pass
Mm-hmm.
on your genes and your name. Even like the firstborn, they think should be named, like a junior or the third or whatever,
Ugh.
like all that. And I was like, what? Like this is crazy for someone like me because I don't understand. Like, of course, my culture has a lot of also has things like you take your father's name as your middle name, like, and all this stuff, but it's not as ingrained as pushing it down your kid's throat. You know what I mean? Like that. It was very strange. But I think that plays a
And
lot
the,
into it.
and I honestly believe that we normalize the mama's boy because it's like women are told, well, if he loves his mommy that much, imagine how much he'll love you. And it's like, great, I'm signing up for another relationship with bad boundaries.
That's
And like
weird.
with daddy issues, it's like those are red flags. Like, ooh, she hurt all over though. You wanna try to undo that?
Right,
But
or
with
like
mommy's
she sleeps with everyone because she's got daddy issues. What?
right.
Like, why is it
What?
like that?
Do you see the way she dresses? Her daddy didn't love her.
Right. That's so
Yeah.
weird.
So, but with like mommy's boys, it's like they get to be like, oh, they're so responsible. They have such like great family ties. Like they're
Right.
really family oriented.
That's fucking weird.
You know what? I could once again never fuck another guy who's very family oriented. Give me a guy who knows the power of no and can set up boundaries between him and all the whack jobs.
I mean, it's a very codependent type behavior, right? So,
Yeah.
like, are we saying, and I wonder if in their minds, when they chose to have children, they were like, my kids are gonna take care of me. You know what I mean? Like, my kids are gonna be there for me and all this stuff. And I'm like, is that a reason to have a kid? Is that a real good reason to have a child? I'm not so sure.
My mother and I just had this conversation because, as we know, I am choosing to live a child-free life forever. And my mother is very proud of me because she thinks that it's wonderful that at 32 years old, I know myself and with enough certainty that I do not want to be a mother and that the goals that I have for my life going forward will be immensely harder if I am also trying to juggle the toxic culture that is motherhood.
Mm.
My sister makes a joke and it's like, well, that's because mom realized that she didn't want to be a mom, but we were already 22 and 21. Like,
Yeah.
she was just late. She was late to that realization and we were already grown-ups. But on the flip side, I get a lot of who will take care of you when you're older. I don't know. I'll walk in traffic. The work pit. Like, I'm not going to get to retire.
Right.
I'm a millennial. So no one will take care of me. Literally, no one. It's fine. I'll go into the woods. The deer will take care of me.
I don't
The
know.
bears.
It's hard for me to say because obviously I am not a parent. I am not a parent. And I think being a parent is amazing, to be honest with you, because it's a lot of pressure on yourself and on your life, and you're basically sacrificing parts of your life for this,
Yes.
for another person, for this child. And I think that's an amazing sacrifice, but I also wonder if it's the parents that want their kids to grow up and take care of them versus parents who want to just experience parenthood and watch their children grow and watch this baby turn into an adult that has their own life and personality and all these things. Those are two very different types of parents, and it's not always black and white like that. Let's, for clarity, I don't think it's like that. And I will never, unless I have a child, fully understand what that looks like. But I've seen parents who are very supportive of their kids going out into the world when they're adults and living their lives, and that seems very rewarding to just watch your kids become who they're gonna become. I would think, but trying to control their every move, that can do a lot of damage on their psyche, like. And making them take care of you when they're children, like that's a lot of pressure for a child.
And a lot of like the pushback I get when I boldly state that I do not want to be a mother is, oh, but I want you to be, because if you have babies, I get to be involved with those babies. And it's like, too bad. be involved with anyone else's babies.
Right.
Like,
That's a weird level of selfishness of hey, you have a baby, you raise a child, wreck your body basically
my body, my
to have a
temple.
child so that I can have a grandchild to smother and treat,
Right.
gifts and hold and all these things. I'm like, whoa. First of all, a lot of pressure.
My body has already been through COVID-19 quarantine and eating DoorDash 3 days a week. Like, it can't also have a baby rip through it. Like, it's too much. It- it's
uh,
too, it's too much.
it's a
But these
lot.
poor mama's boys, I do have, and again, we created this podcast so I could start practicing empathy. And instead of just like telling people, well, you should do it the right way, and because it's the right way.
Yeah. No, but I'm sad for them mostly, for mama's
Yeah.
boys.
Because at the end of the day, I think we'd all be in a better place if everyone could just live whatever version of their truth is the safest and happiest for them and of course the collective universe. I'm
Agreed.
not I'm not telling the next Jeffrey Dahmer to start up. No. No. That's not actually what's going to make you the safest and happiest. Please stop wearing other people's skins.
Oh God. Oh
Uh,
man.
but I
So
am saying that, like, so much of the anger and the violence and all of it that comes from these, like, outbursts of just, like, I don't know anything about myself and you do, so I'm just mad about it. That's where all of my breakups stem from. I don't know anything about myself, and how dare you try to know things about yourself because you make me feel insecure.
oof. That's a big oof.
It's a big oof. It's a big oof.
All right. Well, we gotta have some kinds of manifestations from this. So
Yeah.
what do you got?
So I think when reflecting on my mama's boys, the thing that I was the most grateful about is that once again, when my family decides to come at me, it is usually from a place of emotional and mental stability and not with my security and my money. I don't have to support anyone in my family. That feels pretty great. And I am grateful to at least have a family unit that is secure in themselves that way. I'm also fiercely grateful for my counselor and her ability to help me identify these behaviors because I think I grew up in a culture where it was normal for men to take care of everything, even if it meant they were grown up supporting their parents. And she helps me, like, be like, no, like, it's weird for them to be that fiercely dependent on what their parents are feeling at that moment. Like, it's not nice, it's not out of kindness, and it's not what love is supposed to be. So, always thankful for my boundaries. And what I hope for the men I've encountered who are engaging in this type of relationship with their mothers is that I just want them to find their own priorities, even if it's just starting with one. Just like sit with yourself, meditate for 5 minutes, and ask yourself at the end of the day, what is the one thing that I want above all other things? And I think it's easy for everyone to find themselves in relationships with their parents when they themselves are at a loss from what they want out of their own lives. Like, parents are supposed to be your guides and teachers. So when you don't know a lot about yourself, it's easy to just kind of like mimic what they're doing or mimic what they want.
Right.
But you have to take it that step further and be like, are they my most beneficial guide? Is this actually what I'm wanting out of my life?
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
So for me, I grew up in a family and a culture where there were a lot of expectations. And even to this day, I'm 28 years old. but there are still a lot of expectations that my family, my mother, put on me, and from interacting, and I think what Adam taught me was by seeing his experience with his family was even more resolve of I cannot let others thoughts, feelings, opinions, especially those from my family, dictate what I do with my life. You know, I'm an adult and I'm very grateful for what my mom gave to me. And it wasn't easy, you know, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but she did do a lot for me and I respect that. But now it's my turn to do what I want with my life and what I think is right and all that. So I think watching him really taught me to be strong in that. For what I hope for him is, you know, he learned a lot, I think, from, you know, even, and these are his words, I'm not being like, oh, yeah, I taught him so much, but these are his words. He told me he learned
Own
a lot.
it. You're fantastic. You're a mentor.
But I don't want to
People
sound
look
like
up
I'm
to
right,
you.
you know, I'm always right. I'm not, but like he actually told
Everyone
me.
write into Dina and tell her one thing that she's taught them.
But for
She's
real,
so brave.
it's very
Hashtag so brave.
it's very rare to after you end a relationship to hear from someone that you learned a lot or that they learned a lot from the relationship, and he told me that that he started to learn what the things that he wanted. So I hope that he learns that it's okay to have your own sense of self and not be governed by your mom or your parents for your whole life. He's a very respectful person and he would never disrespect his parents like intentionally. And but it's also know that being your own person and making your own decisions and having your own wants and needs isn't disrespectful to your parents.
Right.
Being your own person is actually it's very important. You know, you only get one life, right? You only get one life. Are you going to live the life that your parents want you to have exactly? Let them control that? Or are you going to live the life that you want and that you think is important and your own journey, you know? So I hope that he continues to think about that as he gets older and moves through life. So
Yeah. All right. We did it.
we did it.
We fixed all the mama's boys.
I don't know about all that. There's some deep-seated stuff, you know, when it comes to family issues. So
Yeah.
but
We
yeah.
at least mentioned counseling so they know that they can get some.
Yeah, my gosh, and that's such a big part of it is that men are taught that they're not allowed to have feelings and they're not allowed to
Right.
you know, get help. If you are having
Be frustrated.
issues, yeah, you are so you are human like the rest of us. It does not make you weak for getting help or talking to somebody or anything. It does not. So please if you need to talk to someone, find a therapist. There's nothing wrong with that ever. I think everybody should have therapy. I think it's beneficial
Right.
for everybody.
I think everyone should get a therapist at age 7. It should
For
just be
real.
assigned.
Honestly.
All right, I'll do some plugs. Well, tolerators, as always, I'm going to ask you to make sure to like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Bonus points if you then take a screenshot of this episode and post it on any and all of your social media. Why would you want to be the only tolerator out there? Start having these conversations with the people in your life. Leave us a 5-star review and a comment about what you're enjoying, and we can start highlighting great reviews. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Men I've Tolerated Pod. For each person who tags me at Natalie K124 and Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram and gives us a little shout out with that screen grab I just talked about, I'll post it on my stories.
Heck yeah, I will too.
And if you say something witty or cool, I'll like it even more.
Love that.
And then, yeah. Don't forget that my new blog full of all of my crazy art projects and sometimes my tarot readings and magical rituals. The next one I'm drafting is about my winter solstice celebration, is at nataliesinspiration.com. And you can always email us questions about your relationships or anything you need advice on at menI'veTolerated@gmail.com. And our DMs are always open.
That's right. And you can follow me on Instagram as well if you like. My handle is at ms.caboose. And I'll have links to all my other social media that's public, as well as my Twitch, where sometimes I play video games. And yeah.
What video game are you currently playing?
What am I playing? Oh my god. So I have been a fan of indie games lately.
Yes.
Just the cutest stuff, man. And I found this, it's so good. And I found this game, there's a couple games. So one is called Calico, which is a very like LGBTQ plus game where you build a cat cafe. Why am I playing cat games? I'm a crazy cat person, but you build a cat cafe and you fill it and you like get animals and all this stuff. It's so cute. 10 out of 10 would recommend if you're into adorable things, or you just want to play an inclusive game, and it's so inclusive, and I love that. And then there's also this little tiny game called Cats Organized Neatly, which is just a little puzzle game where there's different shaped cats and you gotta like try and like put them in, kind of like Tetris, Mm-hmm. I always play League of Legends, and what else am I playing? I gotta think about this for a while. League of Legends I'm always playing. Sometimes I play Overwatch. But yeah, I'm just really into indie games lately. I even actually, this isn't an indie game, but I got an emulator and I've been playing Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from like way back in the day, like holla, loving it, reliving my childhood a little bit there, but yeah.
If you pay for the $20 a year subscription on the Nintendo Switch, it has all of the old Nintendo games.
Really?
Because new versions of Zelda and Mario are too hard for my brain. I do not like them. They are hard. But the original version, like where you're just Link with that sword and you're just like ding 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 ding, cut a bush. Ding 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 ding, cut a bush. That's my speed.
There's something about old games it's just so much nostalgia too. I love it.
I just want to cut a bush and like have a wasp sting me.
That's right. That's all you want.
And then what have I been playing? So I honestly only play the Nintendo Switch, and so of course Animal Crossing. I hope everyone's gearing up for Festival.
Hell yeah.
Festival. And then I played to completion Spiritfarer, which was adorable.
Ooh,
even though it's all about death. But it's also funny.
I love death.
Because all of the like characters are just sassy about the fact that they're dead and they should be moving on. Because that's the whole thing of the game. Like, you're the Spiritfarer. You own this like pirate ship where you're collecting souls and helping them complete their life's mission before you take them to the gate.
The gate of goodbye forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so after I did that, I'm almost done with Roki, which is like a Norwegian mythology game.
Ooh,
I need to look up the actual origins of this game. It's so scary.
Oh, really?
I thought it was going to be cute. It's terrifying.
I love a good scary game, though.
But it's like not supposed to be terrifying. I'm just scared of it. I'm like, oh.
Damn.
So everyone, go out there and play some games.
Yeah.
And then tag us on your Instagram post, not only what episode you're watching or listening to, but a game recommendation.
Heck yeah.
I love spending money.
I sure do.
Dina bought the Animal Crossing ColourPop eyeshadow.
Oh my gosh, I did, guys, and it's amazing. I'll probably post it on my Instagram at some point.
And I spent all of my Amazon points this week on art supplies.
Love
that I have nowhere to store. Send me your storage solutions.
Just fix our lives, please.
Please get me organized. And my sister said something beautiful yesterday during our craft time that I would love to end the episode with.
Yeah.
I was talking about how frustrated I get with watercolors, so I thought watercolor pens would help me get a little bit of control. And she just, like, got real zen, which isn't, like, normal for my sister. And, like, she just went, like, you gotta learn how to control the water with the watercolors. But also sometimes you just gotta let the water control you.
Whoa.
So everyone, take a big deep drink of water today
What
and let that water control you.
That's so random. Drink some water and let it control you. That doesn't sound like good advice, Natalie.
It is good advice because
sure?
think of how we would all feel so much better about the world if we were hydrated.
We are dehydrated bitches, for sure.
I am always a dehydrated bitch.
Alright, guys.
Everyone, just let that water control you and create some beauty today.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good vibes only.
Good vibes only. Bye.
Bye, guys.